Hello, friends. Welcome back to Trade Show University. Excited to have you here today. Another beautiful day here on campus at the university, actually here in Cleveland. A few days ago was beautiful. Today we had a little bit of hail. So you got to love Northeast Ohio weather. But it's going to be sunny in here today as we're talking about a very, very important topic and one that is not given enough credit, enough credence, and that is voice of customer input. And I have on someone who's just he is the guy that you want to go to for voice of customer. His name is Dave Loomis. Dave is the president of Loomis Marketing, a marketing consulting firm focused on providing and coaching voice of customer interviewing for B2B companies. It's what they do, it's what Dave does. He's got background in helping some of the world's largest and well-known B2B brands. And he has taught marketing at the Weatherhead School of Management here in Cleveland at Case Western Reserve University, as a co-host of the B2B Marketing and Sales Podcast, which is fantastic and always energetic. Dave, welcome to Trade Show University. Pleasure to have you on.
Thank you very much, Jim. Appreciate it. Happy to be here.
Yes. And let's start off by telling people a little bit about Loomis Marketing and how you got started and focused on this voice of customer.
Right. It's evolved over time, Jim, and I am now completely focused on voice of customer input and the implications that has on a company's strategy, not just new product development, but also value proposition tightening and exploring new markets, exploring new products and other things. So there's a lot to it. So it's not just sort of voice of customer for no reason. It's voice of customer for a purpose. And I've done a lot of things in my career. I would say you could probably go through like every kind of task or responsibility that there is in the whole marketing roster. And I've probably done it at some point in my career. I've experimented on my own with doing fractional CMO work, which is very interesting, and I can do it. But I recently went through an exercise, which I suggest to everybody, which is to just analyze all the different things that you've done. If your work is career-based, but if it's project-based, what are all the projects that you've done in the last, I don't know, just say decade or something? It's a fun exercise. And then rate them on, three things: what you do best, what you love doing the most, and can you make money at it? Like, is it adding value, I guess would be a way of saying that. And I did that. And all the projects that relate to doing voice of customer came out on the top for me. And that was my message to myself, that it's what I already did, but it's what I really need to do all the time, every day. And so that's what I do.
That's great exercise, especially because then you're adding even more value because you enjoy it. You're going to have more enthusiasm. You're going to dive deeper into those projects and add more value for your customer if you're doing exactly what you enjoy doing. Wow,
No doubt
that's
about it. Gotta love what you do. And I do.
That's outstanding. So let's start by talking about a little bit about voice of customer. Get people get us all on the same page. When you talking voice of customer, what is it that you're talking about? And maybe what are some things that your customers are surprised about, or what are some misconceptions about voice of customer?
Big topic and great question, and very, I would say, salient, because voice of customer is such a hot topic. And the term voice of customer, I've actually met the person who invented the term, and she told me that it was really related to new product development. That's what it originally was, created to describe. But over time, that term has come to represent, for a lot of companies, almost anything that they do that involves customer contact. So I would be very surprised if we would ask really any company out there, do you do any voice of customer? And they'd say, oh yeah, sure, we do voice of customer. We have salespeople talking to our customers all the time, and they hear their voice. And we have field service people going out, and when they're doing either repairs or fixing something or taking care of a service problem, they're talking to customers and they're bringing back the customer's ideas. That's what they say. Or they maybe they're doing net promoter score.
Mm-hmm.
So they're doing, customer satisfaction research, especially NPS, net promoter score. And they're saying that's voice of customer. And I'm not going to argue with really any form of customer contact, because I think all of that is good and should continue. So this is not an either or. For me, it's an and. And what I mean by that is, you probably, as a company, should have a holistic insights program, and it should involve lots of things. Customer satisfaction is good. Net promoter score has its place. Salesperson, service, contact, all that stuff is great. Collect it, put it in the CRM, do whatever you want with it. The kind of voice of customer that I talk about and that I do for my clients is pretty focused. It's qualitative, in-depth interviewing of a small number of customers in specific customer segments. That is the clearest definition I can think of to describe the kind of voice of customer that I do, and that I think is just so important and valuable to really any company.
I'm glad you clarified that, because as you said, every time you have an opportunity to interact with your customer and you ask them and you get their feedback, that's all positive stuff.
Absolutely.
And you shouldn't stop doing any of it. But if you really want the real deal, you've got to go in depth, and you've got to be capturing, verbatim what they're saying, versus, asking a sales rep, oh yeah, they're happy, they love us, and you're not hearing.
Oh, of course they do. Of course they do. Or when I made the point before, that they come back with the customer's ideas, that's really one of the most typical things, is because your salespeople and your service people have not been trained to collect the voice of the customer in the proper way. And so they think they're doing a good thing by bringing back, specifically the idea that the customer has. And then if they hear the same thing from more than one customer, then that gives them the idea that, oh my gosh, well, we got to do this. And so they say that, hey, everybody's asking for this, we got to do it. And what they're actually not doing is they're not asking the follow-up questions to see, why did you suggest this? What are you trying to accomplish with your suggestion? So they're not getting to the root outcome, the desired outcome. And that's the important thing, is to define the customer outcome or desired outcomes, not the customer's idea of how to accomplish that. Because we're in the business, we are in, as a company, whatever we're selling, or, product or service, and we know best how to actually solve the problems. It's just defining the problems is the important thing.
Ooh, that's good. That's good. Solve the problems versus defining the problems. Yeah, because a lot of times we'll define it based on our background and our capabilities, and might not be exactly what the customer needs. So asking them in very specific ways is what we need to do. I want to dive into a new term that I have heard, because I know you're working on a new book. You have your second book coming out. First book, Marketing is Everything We Do. And I just love the title of that, because that says so much if you really sit there and think about the title. Marketing is everything you do. But let's talk about you. You have a new book that's going to be coming out called Customer Outsight. Have not heard that term before. Customer Outsight. Tell us the genesis of Customer Outsight and how you work that into what you do every day.
I came up with the term because I got a little bit tired of hearing the term insight. And the reason I I believe it's valid, and I still use the term insight. So I'm not gonna lie, but I think that it's a little bit like voice of customer, where all these companies, sort of say that they're getting customer insight. And if you talk to them about, well, what does that mean? How are you getting that? Well, I have an analogy, and my analogy is like, if you think about a collapsible spyglass that you might see somebody with on a ship, looking at the ocean and the horizon and seeing what's there. And maybe they see, another ship, and they zoom in on it, right? They take it, they bring it closer. That is what I feel like most companies do with voice of customer and quote unquote insight. In other words, from their own perspective, they're just looking closer at the customer. So they're just trying to understand more about it. There's nothing wrong with that. That's good. We need to understand our customers. Mm-hmm. But I still believe it's from our own perspective. My analogy for outside is hand that spyglass over to the customer and ask them to look at you, and then ask them questions about what they see, because this is really what we're trying to do. We're trying to change our perspective as much as we possibly can to understand as much as possible about the customer's perspective. What's the context of the business world that they're operating in right now? They use our products and services, but they use hundreds and thousands of products and services, all for a single goal: for them to be as profitable and successful as possible. So that should be our goal too. And how do they view us? How do they view us versus the competition and what they need to accomplish? And at the end of the day, of course, our business is the be all end all, but to our customers, we will always be a tool to accomplish their goal. We're just helping them, whatever we do. And so that's what outside is. That's what outside is it's gaining that true customer perspective.
And that is great perspective. Wow. So have you found some of the clients that you're working with, you're doing these the voice of customer work with, that you started asking or having their clients give that reverse perspective, or that outsight to them, that has totally changed their trajectory or the way they were doing things?
Yes, absolutely. There's no doubt about it. I'll give you a great example. That from a communication standpoint in this example case, but I had a client that produces background screening services, and when I started working with them, the messaging that they had was clearly developed by an ad agency, and it sounded like that. It was something like the perfect merger between technology and humanity. What does that mean? What does that mean at all? But what does that mean to a customer or a potential buyer? And is it really getting to the unique value proposition that company has and can really own? Because you know what? I believe this wholeheartedly. Any company that's in business and can stay in business, there's a reason why customers buy your product and stay with you. There is an actual reason. It might be that you're the lowest price, but that's not actually usually the case. It's usually something else. It may be product oriented, it may be service oriented, or a combination of those things. But it's very important for companies to understand what that is and how to describe it, not in their own terms or some ad agency's terms, but in the way the customer describes it, that outside language. And so I went and interviewed a bunch of customers, this in-depth qualitative interviewing that I talked about. And lo and behold, I found that it came down to three different things. And by the way, I had looked at the website and sales materials and other things, and I had found that the company, when I started working with them, was hanging their hat on 55 different benefits that fell into 11 different buckets. Okay.
That's a lot.
Yeah, it's a lot. But this is so typical. This is really very typical. These things build up over time, and it happens. And So we got it down to three things. People who care, going above and beyond, delivering information you can trust. People, process, results. And our goal was to come up with a simple phrase, usually that, it's very simple. It shouldn't really be more than three things that anybody in the company can remember and maybe say in their own way. But it's an elevator pitch that isn't going to be confusing. And it's said in the customer's words, people who care, going above and beyond, delivering information you can trust. Like, those are words, we didn't make that up. Those are verbatim words from the customer interviews. And we heard it so often, time and time again, that this was the thread that we pulled out. That was the outside.
That's amazing. Everyone, if you need to rewind that, listen to that again, because that is just absolute gold. If you're not talking to your customers and finding out, you could be spinning your wheels and thinking that you're doing the best thing ever, and you might even be growing, but you might not be growing at the pace that you could be. It reminds me of a story regarding trade shows. There was a company that was on a board of an organization, and they were putting together their annual show, and everyone from the organization was talking about, oh, we're going to add, more trade show floor hours, and we're going to bring in this keynote speaker and all this stuff. And after a while, the guy said, hey, can I stop you for a minute? He goes, we don't come for any of that. We come for the educational opportunities and the CEUs that you guys bring. If you guys got rid of everything else, he goes, we'd still show up. He goes, so
wow,
you're spending,
and that's unexpected.
Yes. Yeah. That was unexpected. And that was someone who's on the board. So that is someone, and they're not even, so that they're their own people just going and doing what they thought they should be doing. He goes, did you ever ask your other customers? And there was like crickets coming around the room. So listen to that again, what Dave just said, and just take that to heart, and take that to your business plan as you move forward. Let's shift gears if we can, and let's talk about trade shows and companies that are either putting on their own trade shows, or maybe they're exhibiting at a show, and how can they best utilize, give them a couple tips on how they can best utilize voice of customer.
Absolutely. I also feel like voice of customer is also misunderstood, because I think people think that it has to be like, have a beginning, middle, and an end. Like, oh, we're doing a voice of customer study, and it's going to start here, and we're going to do it, and then it's going to be over, and then then that'll be the end of the study. And it's like, well, what about continuous voice of customer? I mean, think about that concept. And trade shows are a perfect example of this, in my opinion, which is, if you go into the trade show with a mindset that you want to understand, that you want to engage in conversations with the customers that are going to show up there that you have, really think about strategically what are some things that you'd like to learn, and then have those conversations, make sure all the people on your team are on the same page, and try to drive to those desired outcomes. So in other words, when you're having a conversation and it's somebody, walks by and then they come in your booth and you're talking to them, of course, obviously we're trying to sell things, but really, what are we trying to do? We're trying to understand customer needs, and really, honestly, determine, is there a good fit between us and whatever that person is, because we want them to succeed, whether it's with us or with someone else. So we're trying to discern that. But if a customer said, boy, I wish I had blank, you could say, tell me more about that. And you could, what maybe one version would be, oh, okay. And you take notes about their specific idea, like we were talking about before. Another approach would be, oh, how would that help you? Oh, well, I'm having a problem with X. Oh, tell me more about your problem. And then you're driving towards the issue, the challenge that they're having, and the desired, oh, I think we might be able to help with that. Did you know we have blah, blah, blah. So there's ways to listen. You have to really be a good listener. And we can teach that, you can learn to be a good listener, and then direct the conversation to better understanding customer challenges.
What do you think is the best way? Because I love what you just said there. What do you think is the best way to capture that information? Because if that's something that just kind of comes up in conversation, or do you train your team and are prepared to have those conversations?
There's lots of ways to capture it, from very, very sort of informally to very formally. So on the informal side, you could have a conversation if you feel like it's not appropriate, given the situation, to be taking notes, on a pad of paper, or on your tablet, or whatever. Then try and remember as much as you can, and as soon as that conversation is over, go and write it down, so that you're just like remembering, because we all forget a lot more than we think.
Mm-hmm.
On the other end of the spectrum are, more formal settings, like maybe you're at a trade show and you have actually, have a hospitality suite where you can interview someone, or you have like a room or a place to sit down and you're really talking to them. I mean, I've seen people ask, is it okay if I record this? Sometimes I see that on job sites or other, things where you can't take notes, but definitely try and write them down. And afterwards, I think debriefing is incredibly important. So trying to take, your notes, but then you have colleagues, and putting them all together. And whether that's, you name it, whether it's a spreadsheet, a Word doc, the CRM system, special fields that you set up for certain feedback. There's all sorts of ways to do this these days, obviously. But just try to record it and remember it, because your brain it won't hold all that much.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Thank you so much for that. And yeah, there are a lot of tools available out there, and maybe being a little strategic ahead of time, so that knowing that, hey, guess what, our customers are going to be at this show, our target audience is going to be at this show. Maybe there's a good way to capture some of this information while we're there. We're already talking to them, so that when, like you said, when that one comment comes up, that you can have your team already trained and thinking of, oh, I want to take this conversation deeper. I don't want to just let this person go or move them on into a demo. I want to know more before I move them into the demo, or whatever the next step in that booth flow is for that customer. So, and I'm sure that people want to get some information or some tips or thoughts on that, they could probably reach out to Dave after this. But
Absolutely.
Dave, as we kind of turn the corner and start to wrap up our conversation today, what are a couple of tips, or if they're main takeaways you really want people to leave with our conversation from today?
Well, I would say having this idea of driving to an outcome with your customers, like trying to understand them better, trying to, as much as possible, empathize and see things from their perspective is very, very important. And to learn more, you really do have to become a better listener. And to me, listening doesn't just happen in the moment. It happens before, which is your mental preparation for it. Then it happens in the moment. And then the best way to prove you're a good listener is follow-up. So good listening is partly happens after a conversation. And so I would say those are key I think, foundation blocks for successful customer service, understanding, eventually sales, whole nurturing process. And of course, trade shows, which is the focus of the university, that is just a great and one of the best, if not the best, ways to interact with a number of customers, at the same time in the same place, which is why they exist. Why trade shows exist. They've existed since the beginning of time in a lot of ways. Marketplaces back in, say the Middle Ages, or when people were selling their things in a centralized location, you could argue that's a trade show.
Yeah, very true. And I never thought of that. Oh, they give me some inspiration for maybe some future topics.
There you go.
But oh my gosh! So everyone get those takeaways from what he said to become a better listener. And at the trade show, you have great opportunities, but it's not just a trade show. And I'm going to go back to something you said earlier that I wrote down. I love this continuous voice of customer, which means year round. Because how many times, if any of us have been in business for a while, we probably had a long-term customer that may all of a sudden they're not ordering as much from you, or they find out they went to a competitor, and you don't know why, and you start to make guesses as to, oh, must be the price, must be this or that. But if you are in continuous talking with them and communicating and getting their feedback, those things won't happen, or you'll be able to react and recover a little bit differently. So I love that continuous voice customer. Dave, thanks so much for sharing your wisdom and what you do every day. This has been outstanding. If people wanted to reach out to you, get in touch with you, ask you some questions, what is the best way for them to do that?
Well, you will find my website at loomismarketing.com, LOOMIS marketing.com. My email is dave@loomismarketing.com. You can find me pretty easily on LinkedIn. And I will be responsive. I love just helping out, even if I'm, as I said earlier, our goal is to help other people. So if it's a good fit and I can help, that's awesome. If not, there's a good chance I know somebody who can help or answer your question. So please reach out.
Thank you so much. And I will make sure to drop all your links right to the show notes. So everyone click on that show notes button. Reach out to Dave. He is a wealth of information, just a fantastic human. So I appreciate that. And check out his podcast as well. It's a great listen. It's a great listen, a lot of energy and a lot of great information. So thank you so much, Dave, for joining me today. Really appreciate you.
Yep. Happy to be here, Jim. And thanks for asking me.
Absolutely. Everyone, keep coming back here to campus. Make sure you're subscribed. Get over to our website at tradeshowu.biz. That's tradeshow, the letter U.biz, and sign up for the newsletter. Just great stuff coming out every single weekend. So many great interviews just like this one. And keep coming back here to campus each week at Trade Show University. We'll see you next time.